It's now been 8 hours since a devastating blast in northwest Baltimore. The scene along Labyrinth Road near Reisterstown and Brook Hill Roads is still a very active scene right now. Crews are ready to work into the night. Hello, everyone. I'm Vic Carter.
And I'm Rick Ritter. Now, this blast was so intense. People as far away as 4 blocks actually felt this. At this hour, we know at least 1 person was killed, 6 others taken to the hospital. But tonight, there are still so many questions about how this happened.
We've had a team of reporters on the ground since this story first broke this morning. We began our live team coverage with Paul Gessler, who spoke to a family member of some of the victims. Paul.
Yeah, he called the people who lived in this neighborhood who were first on scene. He called them angels, and we'll hear from them in just a second. I'm going to step out of the way so you can see what we're looking at. This is 8th hour on the scene since we got here. A lot of heavy equipment. The Maryland's urban search and rescue teams are here, and through the viewfinder you'll see that the rubble is still prominent there about another block down here in northwest Baltimore near the Reisterstown Shopping Center. 6 people injured, 1 woman is dead tonight, and 3 of those people injured, a man described his family's injuries as some burns, bruises, and his sister, he said, walked away from this. He showed us a picture, and we ended up seeing her when we first arrived, as she had ash covering her face and rubble in her hair. Now, about the people described as angels tonight, I want you to take a listen to the 3 people, 3 of the 10 or so that were originally on scene before first responders. Take a listen.
We started calling out, is anybody in there? Is anybody in there? And I could hear like a voice like, help, help. So we just started digging in, moving bricks. I mean, everything, all kinds of debris, like parts of a fence. Like, we wasn't even thinking. Like, it's just, you know, you can hear gas, like, shh, in the background. It's crazy.
And I just kept saying to everybody, pray, y'all, pray, let's pray, and let's get them out of here, let's move. And everybody was just running up the street. It was a lot going on at one time.
Yeah, I went in, I grabbed my stuff, trying to locate people. I heard somebody, a guy that I play basketball with a lot. The guy that I was with yesterday that walked me up here was one of the people that was underneath of the house.
Back live now, Blair Adams from the Baltimore City Fire Department called this a major gas explosion, and that would explain why there are several BGE crews here into this hour. A lot of fire trucks have since left the scene, but as you see from Chopper, it is not quite the activity that we saw in the noon to 3 o'clock hour. It's really calmed down a good bit here, but it is still a big operation here in northwest Baltimore. Back to you.
Paul, with so many raw, emotional interviews today, thank you. Let's bring in Avajoy Burnett now. She has spoken to so many people who live in the neighborhood.
Avajoy, what have you been hearing?
Well, this blast jolted people out of their beds early this morning. People told me they woke up, stepped outside their door, saw what was happening, or looked out their window and saw the damage, and they just started crying. This is something that impacts not only this area, but blocks away.
I mean, it scared me to death. It scared me to death.
An early morning explosion leveled 3 homes in this West Baltimore neighborhood.
I look outside and I screaming for the people in this house.
The power of the blast near Labyrinth Road sent a wave of energy at least a block over. Clothes flew into a tree.
My other house is across the street from it. Her whole front of her house, her bedroom is depleted. Front doors in the kitchen.
Underneath the rubble, people were trapped. Officials later revealed at least 1 person died, and at least 4 others are in serious condition.
I start crying. You know, I'm thanking God because it could have been worse. It could have been worse.
Surveillance video shows the moment after the blast. This young woman rushed outside her back door to inspect what happened.
I was at work. My daughter had called me and said, hey, Daddy, something just exploded. So I had to tell her, say, hey, get your brother and leave the house immediately.
The gas explosion shattered windows, blew out glass doors. Dozens of homes have been damaged.
I came home and, trying to assess, and this is what I found.
This nurse walked us into her house. Glass covered a bed.
And then I came home and found my husband shook up.
Governor Larry Hogan tweeted, "Our prayers are with the victims and all of those affected by this tragedy." BGE's focus was shutting off all sources of gas. As residents clean up, their neighbors have also stepped in to help out.
When I begin to cry, I cry, honestly. I said, oh God, I begin to cry. It was a tearful time for me, really, really.
So at this moment, the crews are still out here. There's been some sort of transition where you're seeing more BGE crews right now. And BGE said this is exactly the time for them to go around and do checks to make sure that there are no leaks, and that they will move on to the next phase from that. In the middle right there where the indentation is, that's where the 3-row homes exploded earlier this morning. But if you look down towards my left, all of those homes, they have some sort of damage. And as I was telling you guys earlier today, even if it's not apparent that there is damage, you just have to look a little bit closer. One of the homes where I thought there was nothing going on, I actually started speaking with the homeowner, and he said, nah, the glass has been shattered on the end. And sure enough, when we went around, that was exactly right. But if you come to this side of things, you see where there's progress being made. Many of these places now have plywood up as people start to try to rebuild after what happened earlier this morning. So it's really good to see that the progress is being made, and it's being made relatively quickly after this blast earlier this morning that killed at least one person, injured several others, and impacted so many people blocks over. Back to you guys.
Joy, thank you very much. Annie Rose Ramos joins us now. Of course, she has a different angle of the scene. You're behind it, and you've been talking to a lot of people who came out to see what happened. Annie Rose?
That's right, Vic. We're sort of on the other side of the street that Avajoy just showed you, and we can see here the BG&E trucks are diligently working. They've been here for hours trying to put the pieces back together of this one power pole that was actually split in half by the impact of the explosion earlier today. You see the power lines kind of being put back together. This at one point was sort of halfway over, and they moved us back because they were afraid it was going to fall on a bunch of us media crews that were standing in this backyard. And also, this still is an active scene here at the explosion behind me. You can see people are lifting out the rubble. They're pulling it out by their hands. There's still chainsaws. At one point during the day, we saw people pulling out, rescue crews pulling out mattresses and clothing, pieces of kitchen debris like bowls and cups. And you can just see how the magnitude of this explosion. There are actually clothes in that tree behind me. Now, all around the perimeter of this explosion, there are tents set up. There are tents to my right, there are tents behind me, all around, so that fire crews and rescue crews can have somewhere to go, pick up some water, cool down. It's been incredibly hot all day long, and they just needed to get out of this heat. So they've been going into these tents that are set up around the perimeter of the explosion of where this blast took place, so that people can just, rescue crews can just get a reprieve, a brief just break from this sun. So that's where they've been getting to get food and water. But when we arrived on the scene, when we first got here, people were visibly shaken. They were traumatized after waking up to this immense blast. Listen to what one of the residents told us.
I can't really explain it. Like, all I know is I was just on my phone, and then I was sitting on my bed, and I was in the basement, and I just live up the street a little bit, so the impact came this way. So when I was in the basement, the windows just went, made like a whole loud sound, and the whole place kind of rocked for a sec, and the kids were startled, so I had to like calm them down, and that's when I quickly came outside and checked everything out.
Vic and Rick, now as people turn to the evening, as it starts to get darker, they're trying to figure out what's next. What are they going to do tonight? Where are they going to sleep? We're standing in a backyard of a family who don't know where they're going to sleep. They have 2 little ones. They've been trying to barely kind of get water and food just to exist throughout the day. They've been staying outside because BG&E said that there were gas levels. They couldn't guarantee whether or not it was safe to go back inside. So they've been staying outside. Their windows are completely shattered. They're now boarded up. But you got to remember, these people do not have power. They don't have any kind of electricity, and so they can't turn on their air conditioners. So it's really, really hot both outside and inside their homes. So a lot of families are trying to figure out what are those next steps after this blast has left their lives in disarray. Reporting live, I'm Annie Rose Ramos for WJZ.
And Annie Rose, that is the heartbreaking reality. Where do they go from here? Thank you. All right, Governor Hogan tweeting out his thoughts and prayers for all the victims affected by this. He also says we are deeply grateful to the first responders on scene. Mayor Young and City Council President Brandon Scott echoing that statement as well.
And I want everybody in the city really to rally around those individuals that are still fighting for their lives. That's what we should put all our hopes, all our prayers, all our energy into those individuals and their families, and just hoping that we can support them to survive through this. This is a tragic incident. We're very grateful to all the first responders, all the city help, all the professional help, those from the other counties that came to help us in this tragic incident. But I need the entire city of Baltimore right now to focus on hopeful prayers for those individuals that are impacted by this.
That Baltimore mayoral candidate Brandon Scott. Let's go now to Kelsey Kushner, who's been talking a lot about how hot it is out there for all the first responders and the people who live nearby. Without the air conditioning, how's the community stepping up to help? Kelsey.
Yeah, Vic, well, I'm standing just a few blocks up from where that explosion happened. It might be difficult to see, but there is still a lot of action that's going on down there towards the end. Now, we haven't seen any firefighter crews head out away from the scene. However, we have seen some, head down there with cases and cases of water. There have been neighbors just showing up, bringing water to the neighbors who are sitting outside, to the firefighter officials. Now, we did just get an update from BGE. They say 235 people were without power. They were able to restore that. They say 38 homes had their gas shut off. They are not able to turn that back on until they get the all clear from Baltimore City Fire Department that they can start digging into where that explosion happened. But they need the fire department to safely remove that debris. That's why they said they plan on being out here all night until that happens. But again, like you were saying, it has been a community effort out here. There have been neighbors right there. There's neighbors with pizza. They've been coming out with cases of water, just kind of helping each other out get through this time. I spoke with one neighbor. She said that the city or Baltimore city officials were bringing out some of her laptops, some of her belongings, and another woman too. She said that she was inside her house when she actually felt this earthquake happen. She was shaking, and she was able to get some of the support from some of her neighbors. But the big question now, what a lot of neighbors have out here, is they're not sure when they're going to be able to go back inside their house. I did speak with the woman from BGE. She says that the big question is that they need to be able to actually get into that area where that explosion happened, and they can figure out what happened. That way, they can say for sure that this isn't going to happen again. So again, BGE says that they do plan on remaining out here all night until they are able to actually dig up that area and figure out what happened. Guys?
Was having some trouble getting to those main gas lines because they were covered by debris and rubble. Kelsey, thank you. Well, from the community itself to complete strangers, many stepping up to help these victims.
Well, people can come to one particular location to cool off and drop off supplies for all those who are forced out of their homes. Let's go now up to Reisterstown Plaza and Rachel Minitoff. Rachel.
Rick and Vic, this is the staging area where the Red Cross is, FEMA, and other city agencies. You can see behind us there is a collection of clothing, there is food, water. It certainly is a hot day, and I'm joined. Anyone who has been displaced by this explosion can come here to talk to the Red Cross to try to find temporary housing. And I'm joined by Wanda over here. You said that your brother lives just a few feet away from where this explosion happened. Tell us what exactly happened.
His house is the one that it blew up.
His house is one of the homes that exploded.
Yes.
And so what brings you here today?
I came in to make sure he was okay because we couldn't even get in contact with him. Him or my uncle? Yeah, for him or his best buddies. But we found out his best buddy was one of the
one they took out.
They took out on the first, the first go round
to the hospital. He's in intensive care, so we don't really know the stage right now. But I know he's in ICU right now.
How is your brother doing right now?
He's shaky, trying to get himself together.
And has he been able to get in touch with the Red Cross, find temporary housing?
Yes, because he did talk to the Red Cross.
Yeah, they're in process with all of that right now. Yes.
Excellent. Can you talk about the community outreach over here, the community coming together to help out one another?
It's awesome. It's so blessing how they just get together and have this community and stuff like that. Look at this. It's really a blessing. It's really a blessing.
Wanda, Ariel, thank you for talking with us. We appreciate it. And thinking of you and your family.
All right, thank you.
All right, Rick and Vic, you heard anyone who has been displaced can come here. This is a staging center for anyone who is in need of temporary housing. The Red Cross is here. They have people working with anyone who's been displaced to find temporary housing. They also have mental health counselors over here. This is obviously a traumatic situation, so anyone in need of counseling can receive those services over here. Again, we're right off of Reisterstown Road in the parking lot next to the Applebee's. For now, I'll send it back to you inside.
Oh, and you can see people there continuing to come and bring things that folks need. Basic,
that part, heartwarming,
needs.
For sure. All right, Rachel, thank you. And here's everything we know at this hour. One woman is dead, at least 6 others seriously injured. The scene along Labyrinth Road near Reisterstown and Brookhill Roads, and obviously it's still very active.
Well, more than 200 first responders from several local departments are still searching for any additional victims. BG remains on the scene, and they're working to turn off the gas to buildings and then will safely begin to assess the situation.
And we are working to learn more about this developing story, and we'll be live throughout the night right here on WJZ. So stay with us. And for more pictures and resources, you can also get that information on our website. Just head to WJZ.com.